Yay.
You and I have never kept anything to its half hour.
Oh no, there was that one meeting once where we had the one thing to talk about that we finished in 20. I don't know. I'm making it up.
That is totally, I was about to say, that is a lie. Every single one of these we've done together. It's been like,
Oh, I was going global.
4 hours later.
All of the meetings that we've ever had.
Oh yeah, no, we've had 20-hour meetings. We've had those too.
We probably have had 20-hour meetings.
20-hour meetings. I'm thinking of a specific one time. I won't even give the details, but you know the one I'm talking about.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have meetings that are 20 minutes that feel like 20 hours.
That feel like 20 hours. All right, I hit record, so I should say, hey, I hit record. And this is just a Jeff and Laura Q&A episode. So I mean, I don't know why I said just. I'm already feeling bad because I know Tom is always like, when you guys do a Q&A episode, put in the notes when you're actually talking about
time we actually start talking. Well, and this one, I feel like this is like mostly chit chat Q&A. I feel like we don't even start talking about dialogue until question number 5.
That's true. Well, this is what happens when Jeff has to do a podcast in the middle of editing his novel, is that there is zero prep and there is a afternoon phone call to Laura to be like, hey, so you want to get on a podcast with me? I will say I have written from scratch 2 chapters today, and I've edited 6, and I have another 5 to edit before I go to bed tonight.
Nice. Congratulations.
So, thank you.
Well, I have edited 1 1/3 of your chapters. So they will be sent to you. I will finish the other 2/3 of this chapter.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah. If nobody knows what we're talking about, I have a novel coming out. I'm just going to tell the whole story because I can do what I want. I have a novel.
You only have 30 minutes though.
Dang it.
TikTok.
I mean, this is good. Authors can learn from this. I made a mistake, and in November, I put up a book for pre-order in May, because I had the opportunity to be on a podcast that is going to my target audience. I was not on the podcast to talk about the book, but I was like, surely it will come up. And it did not. But I had this pre-order for May. And then I've been racing.
Shirley.
Huh? Darn that Shirley. Shirley. Dang you. Gosh, gee willikers, Shirley. I don't know why I'm suddenly from like a 50s radio program. So yeah, anyway, I've been racing to get to my May date ever since then. And the book is due to Amazon on the 11th. I got all of my edits back, except for the 3 chapters that you are re-editing for me, because I've written them like 4 times. They're still not working. I got most of my edits back in early April. And since then, I've been busting my butt to edit this 160 something word book now, 160,000 word book, because it is a monster. Yeah. And so my due date for my internal due date is this coming Wednesday, even though it's well before the Amazon date, but that's my internal due date to get it done. So yeah, it's stress weekend here, which means that, well, I think there's 2 lessons to learn here. A, don't do pre-orders. Pre-orders are dumb. Unless you finish the book ahead of time, then do pre-orders. But if you haven't finished the book ahead of time, don't use a pre-order to motivate yourself. That's a bad idea. And then I think the second lesson here is, if you go on a podcast with your target audience, talk about your book. Don't do what I did. Don't not talk about your book. Talk about your book. Yeah. So those are the lessons you can learn from me as to what not to do or what to do on a podcast. Yeah, anyway. Let me do the intro. We haven't even done the intro yet. Welcome to the Dialogue Doctor podcast. And what do we have happening in the community this week? There's only one thing we have happening in the community that's important. It's a big week. On Saturday, we are doing a masterclass from noon to 4 Eastern Standard Time. But if you can't, noon to 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. But if you can't make it from noon to 4:30, everybody who registers does get a recording of the masterclass. See, this is how tonight's going to go. Yeah, and we are going to completely rearrange how you understand character voice and characterization and cast building. We are going to blow your minds in how you understand character voice and cast building, and you will walk away not only having a deeper understanding of your own character voices, but understanding how to edit them in new ways, understanding how to write them in new ways, and understanding what kind of dynamics you need in your cast to make your plot work. Did I get everything?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, so go to
a lot for 4 hours and a half.
It is speaking of long meetings, we could totally do it in 8 solid hours. It is a lot for 4.5 hours. You are going to want that recording, trust me. You're going to be like, what happened? Yeah.
Some of the people who have taken the class have listened to the recording 2 or 3 times after the class have done the 2-on-1 sessions with us to actually learn how to apply it to their own work in progress.
Yeah, to get help applying it to their own work in progress. It's super true. So come to class. We're going to change how you see character voice. You can, to register, go to dialoguedoctor.com, click on the learning button, scroll down. You'll see the information about the masterclass there at the bottom of the learning page. And it's fun. We have a really good time. So yeah.
And when we say that we're going to change it, we're going to empower you to write character voice in a way that makes it more tangible as part of your story, as opposed to like, oh, I've written these characters and now I need to give them a voice so they can tell their stories.
Yeah.
To really make character voice part of your story development.
And like everything we do here, the goal is to help you write faster. That's one of the goals of everything we do. Is how do we make writing easier, not more complicated? The goal is not to make writing is already hard enough. We're not making it harder. The goal is to try to make it faster. Yeah, anyway. Okay, let's get to our questions. We have 7 questions that came from no one but me. I designed these on my own. Some of them are just like raw fun because I need to think about something else besides writing today. So question number 1. I feel like I need a drum roll or something. Question number 1.
I feel like we can add that in post. And then I will mute.
Don't add anything in post.
Right.
I don't edit. I don't add anything in post.
All right. While you're talking, I will find a drum roll app on my phone.
Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not that important. Number 1, if you were a cake, what kind of cake would you be and why?
Ooh. This is hard because my instinct is to go with my favorite cake.
Well, you bake a lot of cakes. You baked 6 cakes this weekend for a elementary school cakewalk. I'm just putting that out.
Yeah. Well, actually, I baked 7 because I had to keep one for ourselves, which is only 3 batters.
That makes no sense to me. That's nonsense. You baked 7 cakes. That's insane. Yeah.
Only 6 of them were pretty.
I don't know why that's like a less work. Only 6 of the 7 cakes I made this weekend were pretty. Yeah. You know how many cakes I made this weekend? 0 cakes at the Elkins house this weekend.
I'm sorry.
I made pancakes tonight.
See, I tell you, pancakes is something that I cannot make. I cannot do it.
How can you not make pancakes? You make cakes all day. How do you know? You made 7 cakes this weekend.
I know, but I cannot make pancakes to save my life.
My middle school student can make pancakes. It's like the only thing he can make.
Way to kick me while I'm down. I cannot make pancakes. They're either burnt or they're raw, or they're burnt and raw.
Wow.
They're somehow crunchy and soggy and wet and dry all at the same time.
That's my kind of pancake.
Crunchy
on the outside, soggy on the inside.
Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah. It does not make any sense to me. I think maybe it's because I rush them and I burn them on the outside and then they don't cook on the inside. But then I turn the heat down and then they just don't cook at all. I don't know. It's really funny. So I'll stick with the kind that go in the oven.
Okay, so what kind of cake would you be and why?
So I think maybe I would be a funfetti cake.
Oh.
because it looks like plain on the outside, like kind of nondescript, hiding. Like you'd look at it and you'd be like, okay, it's there, but
Yeah.
there's probably somebody else I'd rather talk to. But then you cut it open and there are all these sparkles inside because I bleed sparkles.
Yeah, it is true. You do. That is an excellent description of you as a cake. I like it.
Right? Like I like to
Yeah.
hide behind the other desserts.
Professional looking on the outside. It looks like when you look at it, it's like, oh, that's just a very
Yep.
well done, professionally looking vanilla cake. And then you cut into it. It's like, oh, look at the surprise in here.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
awesome.
It's the mullet of cakes.
It's it is not the mullet of cakes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would be a 4-day-old German chocolate cake.
That's very specific.
Yeah, because I look okay on the outside, but then when you cut on the inside, it's crusty and bitter, and you're gonna be sorry.
Okay, so first of all, I have to say, I have never seen a German chocolate cake last 4 days. And in fact, I don't think I've ever seen any cake last 4 days.
Yeah, I was about to say. You went
So,
through 7 in a weekend.
well, I gave 6 of them away.
Yeah, anyway, those are our
Yeah.
cakes. I feel like we're opposite cakes. That's a fascinating. That's probably why we're such good friends.
Mm.
Yeah. I was watching Better Call Saul this week, and great characters, by the way, in Better Call Saul. And Mike is in Better Call Saul, and I am affirmed that he is my spirit animal. That is my Mike is my spirit animal. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, question number 2. What are you currently working on outside of your day job?
What am I working on, or what should I be working on? I should be working on my thesis, which I should have been working on for the last 5 months and just can't get my act together. Making slow progress.
Are you master's complete sans thesis?
Yes, which is why I'm so frustrated that I can't get myself moving.
You got to get that done,
right? Like it should be done.
Then we can call you a master. What's your master's then?
Experimental psychology.
Oh yeah. Every time you walk into the room, we will say, "Here is Laura, master of experimental psychology."
Yeah, I think that's probably why I'm not finishing it, because I'm a vanilla cake. I want to hide. I just want to be non-discreet. I just want to be on the buffet table.
So funny. Yeah. Okay, so that's what you should be working on.
Yeah.
Your thesis.
So what I'm actually working on is editing for some amazing writers, which has been really fun. And I've been doing
you have a book client that's about to finish, a book coaching client that's about to finish.
Yes, I have. I'm actually really in a neat spot because I have 4 ongoing book coaching clients. Nice. One who just finished a draft, one who's working on Act 4, one who is at about not quite the halfway point, and nice. One who's just kind of at the start of working with me. So it's kind of neat to see like the different, where they all are in different places.
That's very cool.
So that's been awesome. Pretty fun. So
yeah, that's very fun. Yeah, very cool. So you've got editing going on. Anything else?
Well, I've been making cakes.
And making cakes.
Which is actually like my go-to stress relief. Whenever I'm stressed, like I never want to make a cake, but once I start making it, I'm like, well, that's not true. There are lots of times where I want to, but like once I start making it, it becomes just so routine for me that I don't even have to think about the steps. I just measure and I sift and I mix and I put it in the oven, and then before I know it, there's a beautiful cake that's delicious.
Awesome. That's very cool.
So yeah, it's very stress relieving for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I have to give the cakes away because otherwise the calories.
Otherwise you eat 7 cakes in less than 4 days, which is crazy.
That's
you need 7 cakes in less than 4 days. I mean, that's going to make you sick. So I've been working on my novel, and this is a tough one. This one is it's very emotionally trying. Um, so I had it's a fictionalized story of my life, which is a 4-day-old German chocolate cake. You'll be sorry. So that's gonna be my new tagline. Buy Jeff's books, you'll be sorry. So, so yeah, so I'm working through it. It's just very a high. It's I think whenever you write scenes that are that have some root in personal life, they just become very emotional. There is like some reliving of trauma. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like today, I was editing a chapter about a homeless guy, uh, a homeless heroin addict, almost overdosing in the front seat of the lead character's car, and that as she like speeds him to the hospital, and that like really happened to me. And so like I'm actually just like writing like that chapter is weird because I'm just writing what happened. So so it's you know, you get writing it, and I don't know if the writing's any good or not, but I get writing it and I'm like, I'm in the middle of it again. I'm like, okay, we're in the front seat of my car, and
Mm-hmm.
he's puking on the floorboard, and I'm like punching him to keep him awake, like, you know, all that weird trauma stuff. So it's weird, and I'd like to say that like writing it allows me to let it go, but it really doesn't. It's just
Yeah.
it almost like picks up the wound some more.
The reliving of it.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that was real. It does help me process it. It helps me understand
Mm-hmm.
it. I think that's why I tend to recreate events that I've experienced in fiction, is because it helps me
Mm-hmm.
understand it in a new way. But yeah. Um, anyway, that's what I'm working on, and I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish it by Wednesday. I'm on
Yeah.
chapter. I'm about to edit chapter 53 out of 74, so I'm almost done, which is nice. Yeah. Anything else we need to talk about working on outside of our day job?
I don't think so.
All right, we're totally gonna be done in a half hour. Question. I don't know what time we started though. Question number 3. What is something you've recently learned?
Well, this is a hard one. I learn stuff all the time, but then I learn it and then I don't know when I learned it.
I can go first. What do you think?
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. I've really been, again, everything's going to relate to my novel right now because that's my life. I've really been obsessing over inner thoughts. So,
Mm.
because I gave my novel to you and to Chris Kane and to a bunch of other beta readers, and you guys both came back and you were like, this one character sucks and we don't like him. That's a paraphrase. It's
No, I
so
feel like those were my exact words.
those are probably your exact words. That's not what Chris said, but those are your exact words.
No, I wouldn't have said that.
So the idea was that like, oh, he's very internal, and so he doesn't say much, but he's going through all these traumatic things, and because he doesn't verbalize anything, I'm leaving the reader to assume what it is that he's feeling about these traumatic things that he's going through, and there's way too much interpretation. So part of the reason this edit has taken me so long is because I'm having to add inner thoughts to this character, and I wanted to do it right. So I've been studying them a lot over the last month, trying to understand like, okay, how do I do these and how do they look, and like pulling out old books that I've read that I appreciated having the inner thoughts around, and like
Mm-hmm.
just looking at what the author does in those books. And yeah, anyway, I read Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune because I really liked his third person close
Mm-hmm.
in House of the Cerulean Sea, and he does it again in Under the Whispering Door. So yeah, so it's been a busy month for that kind of stuff. But that's what I'm working on, how to write inner thoughts. That's my new thing. And maybe I'll have something to say about it soon. I don't know if I will or not, but we'll see. It depends how the book does. If people read it, they're like, this is garbage, and a 3-year-old wrote it, then I'll be like, never mind. I have nothing to say about your thoughts.
That's really funny.
Yeah. We'll roll it out to see how it goes.
No, wait, you sent me a couple of chapters of rewrites after you added the inner thought, and I thought they were really good. So
Oh,
I would
thanks.
say whatever you're learning. I feel like I told you that too. I hope this isn't the first time you're hearing that.
I don't listen to it when people give me compliments.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. Right now, everybody's like, man, Jeff has a lot of neuroses. I mean, if you've been listening to this podcast and you don't know that, you aren't paying attention. Uh,
Okay, so that's something I learned recently is Jeff has a lot of nerves.
Whatever. You've been my friend for over 20 years. You know I have these neuroses. You cannot claim that as something you learned. All right, something you learned recently.
Um, so I'm trying to think of something and like how recently are we talking?
I don't care.
Um,
There are no rules.
yeah.
There is no
So
spoon.
there is no spoon.
I haven't said that phrase in a long time because y'all, the dialoguer community was teasing me about how I always say there's no spoon. And so I think it's been like a month and a half since I said it.
Okay.
Until just now when I broke my rule.
So I would say the most practical thing that I've learned recently is how to code multiple choice radio buttons in CSS and HTML.
Nice.
So that was the most practical thing that I learned.
That's a very practical thing.
It's very practical.
Oh, I've got a practical one I learned too. Okay, go ahead. Do your next one.
Well, what's your practical one?
I learned that when you plant flowers on the little card that you buy them with, there's a thing that says how far apart they should be from other flowers.
Yeah.
I had no idea that existed. And my gardens always, I love gardening, and my gardens always look like a chaotic explosion of color because I plant things on top of each other. So it's like, it looks like somebody spilled a paint can out there. What is going on? And that's, yeah.
Don't they also tell you like how much sun the plant is supposed to get?
Yeah, but my backyard is full sun. So
okay.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, but you shouldn't then plant something that needs
I didn't learn that though. I've known that. I just never paid attention to the numbers at the bottom of the card.
Got it.
And then this year, one of the plants I planted last year, I opened up a new section of my garden this year. This is all very fascinating writer talk. I opened up a new section of the garden this year, like because we had a tree die, so I had to like plant around it. And the plants I planted last year, one of them is literally growing on top of the other one. And I was like, why did that happen? And then I was like I went to the plant store and was like looking at the different plants. I was like, oh, because it says this plant should only be planted 18 inches apart from other plants. And I planted them 2 inches apart. That's why that happened. So I learned something new.
Well, that's very practical.
It is very practical. Okay, that was my practical. What's your non-practical?
So my non-practical is Jason and I were supposed to go on a cruise in August, and he's not ready to go, and I am. So I asked one of my friends if she would go with me, and she has agreed. So I learned that if you call the cruise line, as long as one person who has the reservation booked remains, you can swap out the other person.
Nice. That also feels like a very practical thing.
I guess.
Yeah.
It was more just very exciting for me because as desperate as he is to stay away from people, I am desperate to get out.
To get out.
So this is a good, healthy compromise for us.
That's nice. I feel like probably everyone in the world is experiencing that same kind of dichotomy right now, whether they are desperate to get away from people or desperate to get outside. It seems like we're all desperate for something right now.
Yeah, I feel like this pandemic needs to end. So I have created
we can't riff about that.
I have created a sense of I am going back to old Laura who never watches the news except on Saturday Night Live. So if it doesn't happen on Saturday Night Live, it does not happen.
It doesn't exist. I'm learning something new right now. That's fascinating.
Yep.
Yeah, that's funny.
And since SNL is on break, I'm pretty
there's nothing happening. There's nothing happening.
Anything
nothing happening.
COVID related.
That's really funny. Where are you going on your cruise?
Canada.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, there's a ship out
Very
of
cool.
Baltimore going to Canada. So
Awesome.
two ports in Maine and two ports in Canada.
Awesome. We have some dialoguers in Canada. Maybe they'll go to the coast and wave at your
I
cruise ship as it goes
know.
by.
I know.
Maybe they'll be like, "Hey, Laura." I actually think that Eric is specifically on the coast. So
Okay.
yeah, I know he's in Montreal. That's on the coast of Canada, right? No, he's in Quebec, or is he in Montreal?
I am embarrassed to say that I don't know very much about Canadian geography.
You gonna learn.
What I'm thinking is like next time we do this, you're going to ask what's something I've learned recently, and I'm going to say Canadian
Canadian
geography.
geography. Nice. That's awesome.
I'm going to learn that.
I'm
And
gonna
I'm
hold
not
this
just going to
question just
learn
for
the
that.
two ports I'm going to. I'm going to learn about the whole country.
Nice.
Because I feel like living this close to the country, I should know more about it than
Yeah. And
Niagara
I
Falls
should probably
borders.
apologize for all of our Canadian listeners for everything I just said about Canada. I apologize in advance. I really love Canada. We did our honeymoon in Toronto, but I am also a moron. So please forgive me for anything I said about your country.
Did you? Now, see, I just learned something. I did
Oh,
not know you honeymooned in Canada. I
yeah,
didn't know
honeymooned
you
in
when you
Toronto.
honeymooned. So,
Yeah,
hey,
I mean it was 21 years ago, but yeah,
yeah,
honeymooned in Toronto. Yeah.
yeah.
Um. Okay, next one. I'm just moving on at random. I don't
Yep.
think we're
I
done.
think we're good.
All right, best thing you read or watched recently, and why it was great.
Okay. So I have a tie
Ooh,
for the best.
I like ties.
Yes, me too. So I haven't been reading
As long
recently
as I don't
because
have to
my
wear them.
brain feels like mush all the time. But Jason and I recently finished The Great Pottery Throwdown. I believe it was
Oh,
season 4, the most recent
okay.
season. It's on HBO,
Okay.
and we've watched the early seasons too, and they're really good. But what I really like about it is it's a reality competition show, and the people are so nice to each other. So nice.
That's awesome.
Jason and I are watching it, and we're like, American TV is not like, I feel like in American TV on reality shows, they're like trying to find the people who
Yeah.
are like personable, but also super competitive.
Yep.
In the
Yeah.
finale, there were 3 Potters in the finale. And the host was trying to get them to be like, well, I'm going to win and I'm the best and this is whatever. And the contestant was like, we're all winners because we made it to the finale.
Oh, that's so nice.
And then I know. And then they were like, well, who do you want to win? Like hoping that the contestant
Yeah.
would say, I want to win. And was
Yeah. I'm
like,
not here to make friends. Yeah.
right. And they were like, oh, I don't know. Everybody here is so good and we all have different strengths and any one of us could win. It was like,
Oh, that's so sweet.
and it wasn't just that one, it was like all of them. And
Nice.
there's a lot of crying on it, which I could do without, but they're just so nice. So I really like that. Now, on the flip side of it, we also just watched Minx on HBO Max,
Huh.
which is a very adult television show with a lot of very adult imagery.
Okay.
It is about a feminist in the 70s who is desperate to create a feminist magazine to rival like Women's Day and 17.
Huh.
And the only publisher
Is
who
it a
will
true
pick,
story?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
The only publisher who will pick her up does adult magazines.
Ah.
So they create a magazine with naked men as the centerfolds and have all of the articles about women's lib. And it's about how they get this magazine off the ground.
Fascinating.
But they are very not shy about showing their centerfolds.
Okay.
So if you can get past that, the characters are pretty amazing. Nick from The New Girl,
Yeah,
plays
I love
the
him in The New
magazine
Girl.
owner. Yeah.
Okay.
There
Is
are
he
a
still
couple
Nick? He's kind of always Nick.
There are a couple of scenes where he's very Nick. There was
Okay.
one scene where he walked out of the scene and I looked at Jason and I was like, is that Nick Miller? And then there are a couple of scenes where he's not, but for the
Okay.
most part, yeah.
Nice. That's
So,
fun.
but it's definitely worth the watch.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
I'll do 2 books since you did 2 TV shows. I'll do books. Like I said, I just read Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Excellent book. Really good. Very heavy. It's about death. Really great. Amazing. I mean, Klune, just character voices are off the charts, and like, his dialogue is superb. He's got an opening scene. The opening scene, I laughed really hard. It's the lead character is firing someone in his office, but the person he's firing does not know that they're being fired. They actually think he's like called them in to help them because they've had so much drama in life. So the character like listens patiently externally, but internally is like, writhing because they don't want to talk to this person anymore, as the person complains about like life and their husband and their children, and the whole time complimenting the lead character about how wonderful he's being. And then in the end he fires her. He's like, you had to see it coming. It was hysterical. But yeah, anyway, it was a great book. I highly recommend.
On my to read list. So
Yeah,
I'm glad it got
very good
praise.
And I listened to the audiobook of it. And the audiobook is very well done. Sometimes you can get an audiobook that's a little distracting. This one was very well done. The other one I actually read was Children of Men by PJ. Oh crap! I was going to say PJ Klune, but that's not her name.
I feel like you did this the last time you talked about this book too.
Did I really?
Yes.
Have I already talked about this book on the podcast?
You have, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll talk about a different one then. I won't talk
about
No,
that's fine.
It was also excellent. It's actually one that's grown on me. PD James. That's what I was looking for. It's one that's grown on me. At first I struggled with it a little bit, but I've really grown to it it's one of those books that like sticks in your head, and the longer I've thought about it, the more I was like, no, that was a good read. Like I need to revisit it and read it again. I think I was so struck by the amount of prose in the book that I had to adjust my head to reading it. But now that I've kind of gotten away from it, I'm like, no, it worked. I need to go back and think about it some more. So yeah, I recommend both of those. They're both excellent books.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'd recommend. I mentioned earlier I'm rewatching Better Call Saul, which I love that show because the character voices are fantastic. Saul and Mike are both just amazing characters, so they're great. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Memorable character voices that you've encountered in entertainment recently. Don't necessarily have to be ones you like. Character voices that you remember in books or in, and I can go first because I mentioned Under the Whispering Door. There's a Reaper in Under the Whispering Door whose name is slipping my mind because I'm terrible with names. She is a kind of millennial. How would you describe her? Because I want to call her a skater, but that's not what that stereotype is necessarily called anymore. But it's just that kind of like, anti-establishment, you suck attitude. But she's got the millennial like super positivity going as well. So she's a fantastic character. And in one of the opening scenes, I'm talking about the opening scenes because I don't want to ruin the book for anybody. But in one of the opening scenes, she attends the dead guy's funeral. And it's her like, she's the only one that can see him in the funeral, and her like, laughing at what people are saying about him in the funeral is just fantastic. For some reason in my head, when I visualize her, I don't know why this is, but I visualize Lane from Gilmore Girls. That's who she is in my head, but in kind of like a leather jacket, a little
Mhm.
badass. But yeah, that's I don't know why that's who I visualize in my head, but that's who I visualize in my head. So she was an incredible character, very well written. The voice is super different than anybody else in the book. You know, when she spoke, you knew exactly who she was. Like it was
Mhm.
great. Yeah, she was really good.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my, I think one of mine.
Nice.
You got one?
Yeah, I'm currently rewatching Big Bang Theory from the beginning.
Wow, that's an endeavor. That's like
It is.
27 seasons.
It was 12,
It's
but
like 32 seasons.
it's like 4,000 episodes.
Yeah,
Um, Tons of continuity issues. Tons.
really? That's really
Like, yeah,
funny.
in one episode, Leonard pulls something out of the safe that's behind one of the pictures in their apartment. And then, like, 2 seasons later, Sheldon goes and pulls something out of it. And Leonard's like, when did we get a safe?
Nice.
Like, you literally just, and then when they
Uh,
eloped, and in one episode, um the Leonard's mom's character has a lot of these. When she first meets Penny, they spend a lot of time together, they like each other, and Leonard's mom really likes her. And then the next time they talk about her, or she comes to town, she doesn't like Penny. And then the next time she comes to town, she comes for, not the next time, but later in the series, she comes to town for Sheldon's birthday party, and they say, we didn't even invite her to our wedding. And she's like, yes, thank you for that, I appreciate it. And then the next time you see her, she comes back and she's all angry that she doesn't get invited to the wedding. So like there's
nice.
tons of these
I don't feel
continuity
like that's
issues.
a continuity issue. I feel like she's just some kind of sociopath that is gaslighting the whole crew.
I mean, if that were the only one, I would say yes. But there are so many of these continuity issues.
Oh,
It's
that's
it's like
hysterical.
uncomfortable for me.
Yeah,
Because
this is a good moment for writers, let me say, because like I know if you're like me and you haven't hit yet and you're like publishing books and they just haven't like, I've got a small following of readers that really like my stuff, but they are small. They are, although they are small, they are fierce, to quote Shakespeare. But yeah, anyway, they but it's you get like, well, maybe it's because I'm making these mistakes that people aren't reading, or maybe I'm like not good enough, or maybe I'm like, and then it's like, well, maybe I need more editors, maybe I need more this, maybe that, and all of that may be true, but I just also want to affirm that, the most professional studios and publishers in the world put things out that have major errors in them.
well, and I also would like to just remind readers that my day job, I would say 25 to 40% of my day job is ensuring that our products do not have continuity errors in them.
It's true.
So over the last 20
It's because you have
years,
messy writers that work for you that are like, it's all right. Like
well,
me, I'm that guy.
I've been a messy writer myself, right? Like the early systems had tons of continuity errors in them, right? But like that's part of our day job, is to look for those things. So I don't know that the average watcher or the average reader pays attention to those things to the level of detail that I do. I mean, I know they're out there, right? Like, because you see
Yeah.
the blogs or whatever that say, oh, look at this mistake in this show or whatever. But yeah, yeah.
You
But
also have to
anyway,
know your audience. Like the thing that Big Bang has going for it is that when they were airing those episodes, you were watching it once a week. So the idea that you're going to remember a year later
yeah, exactly.
how the mom behaved, but now they're kind of like getting caught because there's streaming happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So quite honestly, I think even if there wasn't streaming happening, I think a lot of the shows are doing it anyway. Because
Yeah.
it's just because they're episodic, right? Like you just,
Yeah.
this, is that the right one? Yeah, episodic is each one is by
Yep.
itself. Serial is
Yeah.
when they,
Stands
okay.
alone.
Yeah. You're really just supposed to enjoy that 20 minutes of TV and move on
And
with
throw
your
it away.
life,
Yeah.
as opposed to watching 20 hours of it all at
Yeah.
once.
I keep trying to
Anyway,
tell
so
JP that's how our Vela needs to be, that I don't need any continuity in our Vela. I can do whatever I want. I'm just kidding. I've never said that to him. I really just wanted to say his name to make everybody drink. All right. Sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off.
I feel like I'm missing out on a drinking game.
Every time we hear JP Rindflesh's name, everybody has to take a drink because he's on so many podcasts that if you
Oh,
hear JP's name, you have to drink.
he's the Kevin Bacon of.
He is kind of the Kevin Bacon of podcasting.
Okay.
Yeah, he's
That's good to
everywhere.
know.
He's everywhere
All
all
right.
the time. Yeah.
All right. Nice to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I often tease him that because I listen to podcasts in the morning, I often tease him that because of him, I'm drunk by 10.
I mean, I have been noticing that about you at our 10 o'clock meeting, that you're a little slurry.
I'm sorry, I'm like sitting in my chair like this. Like, hey guys, rough morning.
No, well, it all makes sense to me
It all
now.
makes sense now.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, we're well past our 30-minute mark.
Visual
So,
gags like that are great for the podcast, by the way.
I mean, they're great for me. I watch the podcast on YouTube.
It's true. It works for you. Okay. We're not past our 30 minutes. You don't know what you're talking about.
I do know. We're at oh no, we're at 29.
Yeah. See, boom. Look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll just keep talking for another 2 minutes.
We're still gonna make it.
Okay. So the memorable character voice is Sheldon's.
Oh, we never even answered the question. I'm sorry.
Sheldon voice is so memorable.
Yeah.
With his like weird.
How would breaking it down in words, body language, cadence, and pacing? How would you do Sheldon's voice?
This is fun. Okay,
I've got the master on the podcast. I've got to know.
So Sheldon words, and remember we break words down into topics and language.
Yep.
So language is very formal and very educated. He always uses a large word, even when a short word
he always uses a ginormous word when a minuscule word will do.
Exactly. He always is trying to show that he is better than everyone else. So he's always trying to make everyone else in the room feel stupid, which is what his topics are. So topically, he's always talking about his superiority. He's also very focused on educating and facts. So he says, fun fact a lot at the beginning of what he says. So those are his words. His body language, Jim Parsons is actually a very physical actor. Huh. His facial expressions and his body language play a huge part in Sheldon's voice, especially when he's surprised or like thinks somebody else is being stupid. He does this facial expression that's like all about disgust of your stupidity.
Nice.
He does a lot like with his eyes and his mouth, especially when he's joking around, like his bazinga, his eyes get really big. He does cross his arms a lot as he's talking, which is kind of an interesting thing in body language.
It's a power move. It's like crossing your arms can be like, I'm closed to you. But if you're in the middle of a debate, crossing your arms is like, you're a moron and I don't have time for this anymore. Yeah, exactly.
His pacing is actually interesting because a know-it-all, you would expect a know-it-all to always be the first person to speak. But Sheldon is actually interesting because often Sheldon waits for everybody else to speak so he can tell them that they're wrong.
Nice. Gotta have that last word.
Yeah, his pacing is actually interesting. Often he is the person who speaks in the middle. He does take up a lot of space when he speaks, though. So often, and a lot of that has to do with the language he's using and his education. That takes up a lot of the scene.
That's cool.
And then his cadence is actually very big. And if you were writing it out, I would write it with a lot of exclamation points, only because he's very emphatic when he wants someone to know, especially when he wants them to know a fact, whereas he plays it with a period, but when you're reading it, I would probably put it with an exclamation point. I would also say that of all the characters on the show, his Cadence is the one that shifts the most, whether his body language and dialogue tags happen at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of what he has to say, because his voice modulation changes quite a bit how and when he has his dialogue tags. And of all the characters, his modulations happen more quickly than other characters. He goes from happy to sad or confused very quickly, whereas
Nice.
some of the other characters take a little bit more time to get where they're going.
That's cool. Nice analysis. I like that.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for doing that on the fly.
Sure.
I didn't
Sure,
prep
sure,
you for that
sure.
at all. I was like,
This
just do
is
this.
this is what this is how I watch television. I listen to
Yeah,
somebody's voice and I break it down into.
I 100% do it as well. You watch, once you understand how to break down a character voice, you can't stop. It's the same with like plot. Like once you understand how things are plotted, you can't stop like
Yeah.
watching for the plot beats. It's
Yeah.
the same. It's the same with
Yeah.
character voice. You're like, oh yeah, I know words, body language, cadence, and pacing. So now I'm watching these characters all the time to be like, how would I define that? Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. The next question.
Wait,
What
you
is
didn't give us one. Oh, yes, you did. You
yeah,
did
yeah.
the
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but I didn't
right.
do the words. I can do that real quick. So her topics and language, her language is actually pretty simple. She keeps the words pretty basic. Like there's not a lot of like unnecessary educated style in her words. They aren't, she also doesn't use a lot of like conjunctions, so there is a properness to her words, but it's not a like academic properness, if that makes sense. There is the topics she chooses. She, part of what makes her character hysterical is she really likes to point out when someone else is being inconsistent. That's a big part of her. And she also takes the opportunity to be sarcastic and ironic a lot. So there's a lot of like her pointing out irony or her saying sarcastic things. She's very in her topics, she's trying to do a good job. So she's constantly complimenting people, but the compliments aren't real. So that's what I mean by sarcastic. She's constantly like, look at you. That was such a great thing you just learned. But like it's like the simplest thing that they could have possibly learned. So yeah, that's really great. Body language, I don't remember. It wasn't memorable. Her cadence, she had a lot of like 1 to 2 sentences at a time. She wasn't a big talker. There wasn't a big like, I'm gonna roll this out. As far as well, and that's not, sometimes she was giving instructions. So when she had to teach something, she'd have longer paragraphs, but usually her cadence was pretty tight. And her pacing, now I'm trying to remember. Her pacing, she interjects a lot. She had 2 modulations. There's kind of like I'm at work modulation where she's actually working as a reaper. And then there's a modulation where she's like, I'm just hanging out modulation. When she's just hanging out modulation, she very much sits back in the conversation and just like comments on what's happening. So she's not starting or ending any conversations. She's really just interjecting as an observer of the conversation. In the work modulation, she's starting a lot of conversations because she has a script she's working through. So yeah, there's kind of those 2 modulations. Anyway, that was how I did her. Okay, memorable character voices you've encountered in real life that should be put into a story. And I gotta say, this is where I get most of my character voices. I actually get them from people that I meet on the street. And so this is always a fun exercise for me, because I'll be like talking about watching TV and not being able to turn it off. I'll be like at a coffee house watching somebody order, and I'll be like analyzing their cadence and their pacing. I'll be like, should I put them in a book? Yeah, and I can go first. I was listening to a podcast this week, which shall remain completely nameless and anonymous, because I'm not going to say nice things about the host. I was listening to a podcast this week on an industry topic, and the not writing, a different industry, And the podcast host is a new rebel in this industry. They've seen things about the industry they don't like, but it's fresh.
Mm.
And so I was listening to them and really enjoying their voice because they carry that like weird justification in their voice that like, I see this thing that no one else sees, which is, there's an interesting, like, it's kind of like a sweet tasting arrogance, if that makes sense. There's like I see this and isn't it terrible, but I'm also at the same time really proud that I see it. So there's there's a lot of like unnecessary excitement in describing bad things. I don't know if I'm making any sense. But I was listening to it and I was like, I need to write more characters like this. Characters who are like inappropriately excited that they've discovered something terrible. Because it says something about them. Right, like because they've separated themselves from their field, so it says something about them. So they're very excited about the fact that they are coming into their own. And there's always that like twinge of like, I'm going to start a revolution. That's always like in the background of that voice, like everybody's going to follow me and we're going to overthrow the system. Like that's, and I can define it because I was that person for a couple of years. So that's well, it was like I count like 10. So but there's always that like thing back there. Yeah, so that was the voice that I was listening to this week that I was like, man, I got to put that in the book somewhere. That like, you know, the cadence goes into like when they start getting excited, like sentence structure kind of breaks down and there's a lot of ands and there's a lot of commas, like, and then this 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 and then this. And like it always ends with like that like hardcore declaration at the end of like, boom, mic dropped, I'm walking away. But the way that I feel like you get that like weird arrogance about it is because there's a lot of like eyes being used or like when I saw this, and there's a lot of repeating of the same story. I listened to 2 episodes of this podcast, and in both episodes I heard the guy's origin story, and I listened to the episodes that were like 10 episodes apart, and both of them I heard him telling his origin story over again. Very excited about his origin story. So anyway, that's mine for the for voice I hear in the world that I want to put in a book.
Nice. I think you have an advantage over me on this question, and in that you are in the world. I'm not in the world yet.
You talk to people.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Yeah. Well, to be fair, I got that one from a podcast, not from the actual.
Well, yeah, but you have to listen to other people in order to listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
So
you can do Jason, your husband. I won't tell him.
So I was actually thinking about Jason. So,
by the way, Jason's a really good friend of mine, everybody. I can say that out loud. Go ahead.
So I was thinking about Jason, but I wasn't thinking about Jason's baseline voice. I was thinking about Jason's drinking voice.
Oh, Jason's drinking voice is fantastic.
Because for those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting my spouse, he is.
We've said his name 3 times. I was kind of hoping he'd appear like, you know. Beetlejuice. And he appears in the background of the camera of the Zoom call. It works when we're at work during the day.
He does sometimes creep in, but no, he's already doing his wind down for the night. Okay. So yeah, he's not going to join us. Also, he tries to avoid the podcast. He tries not to jump in and be disruptive for some, sense of professionalism. So,
which he doesn't have during your day job.
I mean, because clearly he's never listened to this podcast and the insanity that it can be.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So Jason is in his regular voice, a little bit arrogant, sometimes a lot arrogant.
It's a lovable arrogance. It's not an irritating, it's a lovable arrogance.
Is it?
It is.
I mean, no, it is. he's very smart,
Yeah.
which I think is where that sense of, and I don't think he means it intentionally to be arrogant,
Mm-mm.
but sometimes when you just know stuff, it's hard to like get that arrogance out, where he doesn't try. I don't know. But he also tends to listen more than he speaks
He
in
does.
his regular, right? Like he tends to just kind of sit back and let other people have a conversation and then jump in, usually to tell a story that makes me look bad. Typically is how
True.
that works.
It's true.
Yeah, he does
Yeah.
love to tell stories that make me look
For a
bad.
while, he was on a kick of telling stories about how he was going to murder you.
Oh yeah, we still, yeah, the murder stories
Yeah.
are rampant, and
The
they're
new
not just,
ways.
yeah.
Yeah.
We what were we watching? He was watching something, and somebody got killed, and they were putting the body through a meat grinder. And Banshee, he's watching Banshee. That's what it is. And they were putting a body through a meat grinder. And I happened to casually mention that I was going to use my food processor to do that to him.
Nice.
And
I love
and
hanging out with y'all. It's the best.
anyway, so but so this is Jason's baseline voice.
Yeah.
When Jason is drinking, he is a completely different person. He's giggly, and he's like, he jokes around.
There's a lot of non sequiturs when he's drinking. There's a lot of just like random changes of topic in no direction. And he likes to ask really deep questions that he is not going to remember the answer to.
Nor
Like,
is he going to listen
yeah,
to the answer.
3 times when he's been drinking, 3 separate occasions, he's asked me, so tell me how your dad died.
Yeah. And you every time tell
I
him
tell
the
him, I tell the whole
story.
story every time. It's a complicated and tragic story. And every time I tell it, and every time about 3 minutes, he's like glazed over.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely, and
Yeah.
he doesn't drink often, and he doesn't usually overindulge, but he does have a tendency to think that he has a lot of bravado when he drinks, and he likes to tell, specifically me, but other people in our party. Thankfully, it hasn't gone beyond our party yet. It's not like he does this to the waiters yet, or other
I'm
customers.
not sure what you're going to say. So I'm kind of like, what does he do?
He likes to tell people what to do.
Oh,
And
yeah,
he
he does do
likes,
that. Yeah.
right, like, but not
Yeah.
like, he's not telling the waiter what to do. He's like not being a jerk about it to
No.
anyone. He's right, like, but he likes to just tell people what to do, and he likes to think that he has everything under control. He loves to say, I'm going to drive home, when he's been
Yes.
drinking,
When that is
which
absolutely unacceptable. He will not be driving home under any
we never let him
circumstances.
do.
Yeah.
If we're both drinking, we take an Uber,
Yeah.
or if,
Often you prepare
yes,
by
in
taking an
advance.
Uber to the restaurant.
Like if we
When you
know
guys
we're
show up
going
in an
to
Uber, I'm like, oh, Jason's drinking tonight.
yes, yes. So one time we were out drinking, and once he starts drinking, as many people do, he needs to use the restroom a lot.
A lot.
So he goes to the restroom, and we're
He
getting
also
ready
has
to,
the feel when drinking, Jason's voice modulation needs to announce that he needs to use the restroom a lot. It's not
every
just
time,
using it, it's a production.
every time.
It's a production.
So he goes and he comes back, and we're getting ready to leave. And I tell him, go to the bathroom. And he says, I am not a child. You can't tell me what to do. Meanwhile,
I've heard him
I'm
use that
driving.
line before.
I tell him, I am not stopping on the way home. And he says, I'll be fine. I'm not a child. So we're driving, brand new car, like the day we drove it off the lot.
Oh,
We get, I am not kidding you, 2 miles from the restaurant,
Oh no.
And he starts tapping me on the arm. Hey, hey.
That's exactly how he sounds too. Hey, hey, hey,
I know what he's going to say.
hey,
So I ignore the first two.
hey,
Right. And
hey.
I go, I am not pulling over. I told you to go pee. And he's like, okay, just pull over right here. I'll just pee by the side of the road. I'm like, that's all we need. Is for
I
you
could
to
hear
take
it. I could hear his voice in my head. It's great.
So we're still probably 13 minutes from home. So he goes back to sleep, closes his eyes in the Jeep. Hey, I gotta pee.
That's really funny.
And he gets really breathy. I don't know why he gets so breathy when he's
I don't know. He does though.
It's an emergency.
It's
an emergency. So finally, after 5 miles of this, I finally pull over and let him go into a store. Apparently, he walks up behind somebody in the store and is like, hey, where's your bathroom? And scared the crap out of the person.
Nice.
Anyway, so Drunk Jason is who I would put in a book.
Drunk Jason is going in my next book. That is happening. Drunk Jason shall be in my next book.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, will he be throwing blueberries and blackberries with Wendy
at my wife
in a very expensive restaurant?
Yeah. What's really funny is that, I've never been drunk. I do not that's part of just growing up Southern Baptist. I still have that weird internal guilt shame complex that's like, drinking is of the devil. But we'll go out to eat, and my wife is such a lightweight. If she has half of a glass of wine, she's like 2 sheets to the wind. If she finishes the glass, she's done. But yeah, so Jason and Wendy together drinking would be a great novel scene, as they're in a nice restaurant throwing berries at each other to try to catch them in their mouths and celebrating. They caught a couple, but they were also celebrating when the berry went 10 feet in the wrong direction.
I mean,
there were times where Jason was claiming victory and that berry was nowhere near his face.
I mean, you win some, you lose some. But
well, we can't because it would involve his name. Anyway, so that was that's a good. You win that question. Drunk Jason in a book is great. Okay, last
in real life is pretty great too.
Drunk Jason in real life is amazing. That would be my problem with writing him, is I don't know that I can actually capture the full essence of Drunk Jason. But yeah. Hey, tell me about how your dad died. Hey, come on. Anyway, okay. Hey, I had this thought. If I'm going to kill Laura, I'm going to do it at campground because the showers there are so disgusting already.
Which, just so our listeners know, did not actually happen when he was drinking. It happened when we were out to lunch with his family. There was a whole plot going.
Yeah, but he brings it up every time he drinks. I've heard that story 10 times. He just keeps bringing it up whenever he drinks.
I mean,
because he's proud of it. He thinks it's really funny.
Yeah.
And it is, actually. So last question, because we got to keep this under 30 minutes. What part of
we're at an hour and 2 minutes now.
We got to keep it under 30 minutes. What part of next weekend, our masterclass, do you think is going to be most helpful for the people that attend? This is not a sales question. I'm generally interested. And now you'll never know how I actually feel. Goes to my tagline. You'll be sorry.
German chocolate cake. 4-day-old German chocolate cake.
4-day-old German chocolate cake. You'll be sorry.
If you keep German chocolate cake in the refrigerator, I feel like 4 days is not a long time.
We're not keeping this in the refrigerator. This is on the stove. This is sitting on the stove uncovered.
I mean, I feel like there's enough sugar in the icing to preserve it.
I don't know. I don't actually bake cakes. I have no idea.
Yeah.
No.
So the thing that's going to be most helpful for people who attend, I think that we try really hard to focus on like, how do you put this into your work in progress? And I think that's really helpful. We use a lot of examples from, we try to use well-known examples. We use Beloved. We use To Kill a Mockingbird. My guess is we're going to start putting some TJ Klune in there in some of the laters.
Definitely.
We're both such fans of
Yeah.
Klune. I feel like the dialoguers are going to have to be, we're going to have to change the name to the Cluners or something.
Cluners, yeah. I've started using a lot of Tolkien and Bridget Jones' Diary because everybody knows those too. If you don't know Bridget Jones' Diary, you know Tolkien, or vice versa.
Or you're me and you don't know either.
You don't, but you know, I can't help you. I'm just
I'm a lost cause.
That's right. You'll be sorry. Yeah. So anyway, you were saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You think it's the application to immediate works in progress?
I think the examples, and then like, how do you do this with your own? Because honestly, you know, I think, and we try to do this with everything we do, is like, how do you do this in your own writing? How do you put this into your own work? Because it's all well and good to know stuff, but if you don't know what to do with it, like, what's the point in spending 4 hours learning something if you don't know how to apply it?
You don't know how to apply it after. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we do, I don't know if we do a good job, but we make a conscious effort to talk about, okay, when you're doing this, when you're using this tool, and we give you the tools for free. So I think that's a pretty cool thing.
I mean, they are just Google Sheets, but you do get them for free. They're well organized Google Sheets, though. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think in our discussion of character voice, right? Like, we talk about the dialogue daisy, we talk about voice modulation, we talk about the components of character voice. I feel like that, like, packaged together is very transformative. It's transformative for me as a writer. So I feel like for other people, and from people that have attended the course before that are still dialoguers that talk about it with us, it's the combination of all of the knowledge that I think really brings it home, that transforms how people feel about it. Yeah, that's my thought. That's what I think. All right, anything else we want to talk about before we shut it down?
No, I would say come to the conference.
Yeah, come register. It's fun.
If you
it's
want
not free. I've had several people reach out and tell me they thought it was free. It's not free. It does cost money. But
if you want a discount, though, join the Slack channel first.
Yeah, if you go join the Patreon, this is the dirty secret that it's not really secret because we talk about it all the time. If you go join the Patreon for $5 a month, you get 20% off of our master classes. So you immediately save yourself $45. Yeah, anyway, that's me being a cheap writer who's always scamming for a way to get things cheaply. Yeah, I think we did it. I don't think we have anything.
Yeah, I do want to mention that there is an option when you register for the conference. Jeff and I do a 2-on-1 session as an optional add-on where we take your work in progress with you and we look at your character voices and we talk about how your characters develop and serve your plot. And in the same way, we broke down Sheldon and the Reaper's voice about this is how you want to use their words, cadence, pacing, and body language. We help you figure that out for your own writing and how to put it into your writing. So that's, you don't need to attend the conference. If you want to do that, there's the option to do that separate from the conference. You can also add it. I think, is there a discount to add it with the conference?
Yeah, it's cheaper if you add it with the conference than if you just do it standalone. But yeah. So that's a service we offer that is I think it's one of the better services we offer. People really get a lot out of it. Yeah. All right, let's close it out. I think I'm just going to do the closing on the podcast right now. Is that okay? Because usually I do it after the podcast, so I'm just going to do it right now. Usually I say, like, I'm going to hit stop on the recording, And then
But now you're not. You're just going to talk about
I'm
the
just going to
topic,
talk about it.
not, and then
I
you're going to
had
give
to
the blurt
talk
out.
about it. I had to
Of
talk
course
about
you
it.
had to talk about it. Hey, hey,
Hey.
hey.
All right, y'all. Thanks for
You gotta
listening. I
talk.
hope you
You
got
gotta talk
something.
about.
I hope you got something out of today. You can keep going. I was just going to go over you. I was going to give
Well,
them
I
the full
know,
Jason
but if
experience.
people wanna listen, I shouldn't be doing my drinking Jason over top of your actual exit.
This is how I end every podcast. I go, hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got something practical out of today, something that you can apply to your own writing. Don't forget to go and register for the conference on dialoguedoctor.com and keep writing, get those words on page, and we will see you again next week. And then the music starts right here.